So what's the E-Myth? It's a book written by a guy named Michael Gerber, and in it he makes the case why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. So the E-Myth is this: just because you're good at the technical work of your business doesn't mean you're good at the business of your technical work. So the E-Myth tells the story of Sarah. Sarah loves baking cherry pies. She loves it so much, she decides to open a bakery. And then she discovers just because she's good at baking doesn't mean that she knows how to run a bakery. And so what so many people, tradespeople, craftspeople have in common is they get started in business. They started with a trade. You're a woodworker, you're an electrician, plumber, HVAC. And while you may have spent 5 years learning your trade or becoming a Red Seal journey person, there's never been really any business education. And so that's what the background of the E-Myth is about. So it starts with this other premise that if the owner wants a better business, first the business needs better one of these. And of course, I'm teasing, but I'm also talking about most of the people in the room. And so a successful business, in order to achieve this, a successful business is, at least conceptually, a three-legged stool. And the first leg of the stool is that systems run the business, people run your systems, and you lead your people. So that's one leg. I know there's three items here, but that's one leg of the stool. So let me tease you a little bit. How do they get those French fries to taste the same in your town and mine? And the French fries are made by a 16-year-old, and the parents of that 16-year-old can't get him or her to clean their bedroom. How do they do that? Well, of course, they've got great systems. So we're not making it up every time we're making French fries. We have a process, we have standard operating procedures, we have recipes. In other words, we can reproduce the same result time and time again using people at the lowest level of skill or training. So that's the first leg. The second leg is systematize the routine, humanize the exception. So what does that mean? About 85% of what happens in a business ought to be routine. This is how we do it. This is how we make French fries. Time and again, we can reproduce the same result because we're using systems, not people. If we have people running our business business rises and falls on the back of those people. If we have systems running the business, then the business is stable because we can hire and train and attract people to reproduce the same result time and again. So in this hypothetical story again here, we one day find out that we've run out of potatoes. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? This is an exception. We don't know what to do. We have to phone you. We have to phone the business owner. Hey, we don't have potatoes. What do we do? And we figure out an answer to that question. And then the third leg of the stool is that when something like that happens, we look for a system solution, not a people solution. What does that mean? It means in the event that we one day found out that we don't have enough potatoes, instead of trying to scramble and figure that out next time, we'll want to have a system. What would the system have to be so that we know what to do the next time we run out of potatoes? So we're not scrambling. We've anticipated or recognized that from time to time this sort of thing is happening, and we've now figured out a solution to that. So what's in it for you? Well, working in the business, the E-Myth is famous for a phrase, working on the business instead of in the business. So in the business is when you're doing the technical work. You're actually working as a woodworker or the specific trade, the specific tool, hands-on tool work that you're doing when you're working in the business. Working on the business is assuming the leadership role of the business, where your primary function is not doing the work, but being the owner, being the business owner. And why does this matter? Well, let me give you a hypothetical example of a business whose value is $5 million. Someone would be willing to pay $5 million for that business, and that's because its profit, EBITDA, is $1 million a year. So this business is quite successful. It's going to sell for 5 times earnings. That's a pretty good outcome. So if we work real hard in the business for a year and we add 10% to the profit, that would add $100,000 to your pocket. So instead of $1 million, we'd do $1,000,001. If we work on the business and make the business more attractive to sell, which at the same time is also making the business more systematized, 10% growth adds $500,000 to the money in your jeans. So that's what's at stake. We get often so caught up in working in the business. We're trying to make it more profitable. We're trying to increase sales. We're trying to control expenses. And all of that is a worthy goal, but we lose sight of the fact of possibly the bigger outcome. The bigger result that we're looking for is building a quality business that runs without you. So how do you do that? There's 3 columns, 3 pillars to this. The first of which is you got to get everybody on the same page. So that means that you want everyone to understand the same vision, mission, and culture, and having a strategic or some kind of business plan. And so when you think about a strategic plan, lots of people think, oh man, that's kind of a big highfalutin kind of thing. And, my business doesn't really need a strategic plan. But here's the point. The most important aspect of a strategic plan is it's 5% vision, 95% alignment. The most important part of getting a strategic plan is getting everybody on the same page where they share similar vision, mission, and culture. Why does that matter, vision, mission, and culture? Well, let me again tease you a little bit if I could. Why are the 10 Commandments written in stone? Why are the 10 Commandments written in stone? They're written in stone because we never debate if thou shalt not kill is a commandment. That's the standard. That's what we're going to hold ourselves up to. So instead of debating, is it a commandment? Is this our vision? Is this our mission? Is this our culture? We're going to hold people accountable to delivering against that result. The people strategy is so that everybody knows who does what and when and who's responsible. Getting everybody on the same page. And the management strategy is to make sure that our strategic plan converts into action, and that we measure results through KPIs, and that we can do that in a reproducible way because we've got standard operating procedures or SOPs or dashboards or operations manuals. So how can you go about doing this? Well, when you think about growing a business, first of all, it's about business growth, systems, tools, and strategy and business. It's also about personal growth, and that's about you, the owner, becoming better at leadership, communication, delegation, leadership skills, and it's also about performance or holding you accountable for the stuff you say you're going to do. So I work through a framework called the 5 Steps to Freedom. Creation is pre-revenue. You're thinking about how you're going to position yourself in the marketplace. You launch the business, and now there's a bit of a wobble as you try to find your footing, and you're thinking about your revenue plan and marketing plan and sales plan. At control, the business is starting to be profitable, and you're scaling for growth. At prosperity, the business is doing very well. It's profitable. Lots of businesses like it. Business owners like it at this point, but others want to get to a place where they have time and money freedom. And what does that mean? It means you can spend your time as you wish, and you have the money to do that. And it could be because you want to start a different business, you want to sell this business, or you want to spend every day on the beach. The point is you can, and you have that choice available to you. Lots of owners are challenged around time, team, or money. The complaints lots of owners have in common is when it comes to time is I've got too much to do and not enough time to do it. I can't get everything done. If I don't do it, it won't get done. When it comes to team, it's about hiring good people. Recruiting is hard. It's getting people to do work at the quality you need, getting those French fries to taste the same time and again. And it's about culture or getting everybody on the same page and delivering in a team-like way. And money's got 2 aspects to it. Money, on one hand, is I need proper financials, accounting, reporting. I have to understand what my P&L is. I have to understand what my cash flow is. And the other side of money is I need or want more money. I need better sales and marketing. And there's personal growth. When When we think of who am I, all we ever see of people is what they say and do. And what I mean by that is observable. We can see, we can hear. In physiology, I mean tone of voice and body language, and that's what drives results. On the input side, your background skills and knowledge, and those are driven by goals, but for all of us, it goes through a filter. And that filters our mindset, or the lens with which we view the world. So today I want to do an example of what's a belief. Well, what's the first three words that come to mind for you when I say the word, money? What's the first thought that comes to mind for you? So lots of people say things like freedom, paying bills, it's currency, you might have a bunch of different things, but let me ask you, what if we were to look at the dictionary, how would the dictionary define money? If you look it up, it'll be something that sounds like money is an abstract concept backed by confidence. Money is an abstract concept backed by confidence. What does that mean? Money isn't anything except what we hold to be true about it ourselves internally, as well as what we hold to be true about it in community, in common. Let me show you what I mean by that. So how does an employee think about money? An employee thinks about money as trading their time for money. They earn a salary. A self-employed person makes money. They produce money. They create money. An owner thinks about an arm's length entity known as their business from which they receive profit. An investor, of course, thinks about return on investment. An entrepreneur, at the entrepreneurial level, Warren Buffett doesn't work for money. Money works for him. You know the story of the guy who wins the lottery and 5 years later that guy is broke? You know what the average middle class person thinks about money is you spend money. That's the point of money, is you spend it, you pay the bills. And so 5 years later, that person is broke. Everybody in the community has a new truck, but he's out of money. And what happened? Well, it isn't money itself that drives behavior. It's your philosophy or your beliefs about money that drives behavior. And so many people who are tradespeople, although they notionally own a business, they still operate at the mindset of self-employed. So the first thing you'd want to do is shift your mindset from, my primary role in life, my primary role is working as the owner of a business, which isn't the same thing as operating the tools that I use to deliver the products in my business. That's a hard shift to make. And without making that shift, you're always going to be constrained. So in a way, self-employed is just over broke. You have a job with your name on it. And then personal performances all help you do better quality push-ups than this guy's doing, and more likely not more push-ups than you're doing on your own. No matter how much willpower or discipline you have, none of us have enough. It's a myth. Those of us who get the results that you're looking for have built the habits that then preclude the need for motivation or willpower. And how do you build those habits? You create systems or an environment around you that encourage you to develop the habit. And so then it becomes self-sustaining. So what's the purpose of business? What's the purpose of your business? When I ask this question, I've asked at least 1,000 business owners this question. Lots of people will say, well, to make money or to make profit or to offer my service or the product that I provide. But here's the truth, or what I'd like to offer you as a thought. Well, all of the things that I've just said are the things that you might tell your team or you might tell your customers. The real purpose of your business is to give the owner the life you want. The real purpose of the business for the kinds of businesses of the people in this room is to give you, the owner, the life you want. And what often happens is we get that backwards. Our business takes over our life. And we don't have freedom from the business because the business consumes 70 hours a week and all of our attention. And you haven't been to one of your kids' hockey games in forever because you can't. And so ultimately, if you start from the perspective that the purpose of your business is to give you the owner of the life you want, then you recognize the value of systematizing the business. You'll recognize the value that if your business can operate profitably, successfully without your day-to-day presence, that business is very attractive to a buyer. And that business then becomes what's likely your greatest asset, your greatest wealth producing asset in your portfolio. But if your business needs you to be in the business in order for it to operate, then that business has very little value to a buyer. Because the buyer knows the business won't work unless you're there. And so the great skill then, the great ability is how can I make this business operate without me? Or to go back to the McDonald's example, how often is the owner of a McDonald's franchise in the business? As little as they want. They have an operator. They have a manager who runs the business day to day. They're the financial investor. Now I get that you probably have some pride of craft. You enjoy the work that you do. And the irony of it is that once you get to the level where the business can operate without you, you're free to go back to doing the work of the trade or your craft. But you can do it on different terms of your choosing. You're not stuck doing it. You're doing it because you want to do it. But you have other options available to you. So, Lori, if I may, or Bill, I wonder if there are questions or anything that people might like to ask, or maybe have some experience with some of this, or perhaps there's something you want to push back on. I'd be happy to hear any of those kinds of comments.
If anybody would like to ask a question, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Oh, I've got one hand here. Go ahead.
So you're talking about systemized businesses, but in a situation where we aren't system oriented because we're custom manufacturing, how do you implement these strategies into something that is changing not even daily but sometimes hourly in terms of what you're doing? Would you get
on an airplane if you knew the pilot didn't complete the pre-flight checklist? Would you permit or allow surgery to happen if you knew they didn't do the pre-operation checklist? So my point is here that even a pilot, very highly skilled, super trained, 5 years, who knows how many tests, how many standards they had to achieve, still relies on a system to ensure that the airplane starts in a predictable, robust way, time and again. As humans, we're subject to making mistakes, and the protection against that mistake is to systematize the routines. Otherwise, what happens with the surgeon is they get to the end of the operation and they're saying to themselves, geez, I started with 30 scalpels, but I only count 29 today. What happened? So if I understand your question correctly, you've got a business where the individual talent, the individual work is customized for every specific application, but that's the application of the actual product you serve. The process ought to be systematized. How you create that result can be produced time and again. With assuming there's some kind of trade or some kind of accreditation necessary, of course, you'll need that accreditation. But what I'd say to you also is that if your business requires significant customization every single time, that business is not scalable. You may like it, you may be making a lifestyle choice, and of course you're free to do that. If you're looking to create a business that's predictably profitable and predictably sellable, then you need a systematized business that you can train the next owner to reproduce the result that you're talking about time and
So-
again.
So let me just sort of further follow up on what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
specifically to what we're doing here. I mean, we are, for the most part, custom architectural millwork manufacturers in this group.
Mhm. Mhm.
We are project by project based. Yes, there's a system in place in terms of we have an A, a B, and a C procedure for example, shop drawings to fabrication to procurement and so on and so forth. There's some universality there, but because we are majority project driven, I'm still trying to understand how we can implement what you're saying. I mean, our businesses are not all scalable because none of us, I mean, again, we don't produce a universal product. We produce based on on a custom basis. So I mean, the systems are great. I'm a big fan of systems, but how are they implemented into a business that is ultimately custom versus, I mean, I'm not always producing French fries, to use your analogy.
Yeah. So let me give you an example of a guy who's solved this problem. He's a contractor here in British Columbia. He's won a bunch of Georgie Awards, which is the the sort of Oscars of the construction trade. And what he's done is he's demonstrated a way to systematize the business. So this is how he goes to market. So step one of his process is we're going to have a get to know you kind of meeting. And at the end of that, if we agree to move forward, we're going to move into step two, and you're going to sign the feasibility agreement. And there's an outcome, it produces a result. And at the end of that, we're going to decide together if we move on to the next stage. And then at level 3, you're going to, in this case, permit budget agreement, and we're going to go through a process. And at the end of that, we're going to decide if we want to work together. And then we're going to do this stage, sign our Now, many of the general contractors, you probably know this, only get paid here. He's getting paid here. He has systematized his process. So this is his sales process. He's also got a great way of describing how he goes about organizing the work. Starting smart, we get right with the money, we do the footings, we're going to do a drainage. And so you can see the person who's paying $3, $5, $10 million for one of these houses gets to understand, oh, it's a process. I can manage to these milestones. I can manage to these budgets. Now, every single home is going to be different, of course. Every single home, the drawings, the specs for the cabinets are going to look different. But the process to install those cabinets happens time and again. There might even be I don't see it. I was wondering if there might be a reference to
it was like step 20 or 25.
Installing the cabinets.
Yeah, go up.
Say it again.
Yeah, it was like step 25 there. It was Dream Kitchen there.
Well, there you go. So my point is, individually, every product, every installation is different. The process to produce that installation is systematized. So that's the distinction. I hope that helps you understand that, yes, you're delivering a custom kitchen every time, but the process to produce that kitchen is repeatable and it's teachable. And you can explain it to your customers. You can explain it to your team members. Which is a little like me saying, well, we can train a pilot to be a pilot, but they still rely on a system, a checklist, in order to make sure that plane gets off the ground safely time and again. Eugene, does that help you help me understand that?
Yeah, I think so.
By the way, Clay is not a customer of mine, but I just admire and use this reference as a way to say he has systematized his process. First of all, his sales process is systematized, and he's getting paid along the way at each step in the process. And it's legitimate and in the minds of a buyer, someone who's buying one of these expensive homes, it seems reasonable that at every step in the way, we're going to produce an outcome. You're going to pay me to produce that outcome, and we're going to jointly decide if we want to take on the next step.
Thank you, Eugene. Are there any other questions?
I'd be happy to entertain them. If someone wants to, let me just come back to my screen here, you guys. Again, we start with the premise that if the owner wants a better business, first the business needs a better owner. And if you're in a place where you'd like to have a chat or ask me some more questions about this or dig in a little bit more, if you go to huddlewithjohn.com, huddlewithjohn.com, that'll link you to my calendar, and I'm happy to talk to you about that. It's complimentary, of course, if there's some questions that you have that are ones that you'd prefer to ask in private. And if there's the basis for a complimentary coaching call, we'll go ahead and do that. But please feel free to go to Huddle with John. Huddle with John takes it to my calendar. It's easier to remember than W5Coaching, calendly.com/John. Just go to Huddle with John.
That's awesome.
That's what I had in mind today, Lori, just to give everyone a quick sort of overview or to make the case that a business can be systematized, whether that's McDonald's or one that delivers custom projects.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, John, for your time. We greatly do appreciate it. If there's any further questions, please feel free to stay on the line. We'll stay on for another minute or so. For those of you who did join us, thank you so much today. And we are taping this, so it will be shared through our standard YouTube channel. Thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And John, thank you again so much for spending your time with us this afternoon.
Laura,
My pleasure.
Yep.
I can ask a question to John.
Yep.
Yeah.
John, what approach would you take when you have limited time to make that systemization process work?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, Bob. Here's the thing, what I know is that every business owner who we start this conversation, they're saying the same thing. I don't have time for this. Where in the heck, how am I going to add this? But here's what I also know is true. Every business owner is probably doing 5 to 7 hours worth of work each week you should not be doing. Every business owner is doing 5 to 7 hours worth of work each week you shouldn't be doing. And I'll give you a hack to figure this out. It's a bit graphic, Lori, but if you don't mind, I'd say to you, Mr. Business Owner, what's on your oh shit list? What the heck is that? Every time you go to have to do payroll and you say to yourself, oh shit, I have to? That's an example of I have to do bookkeeping, I have to do accounts receivable, I have to return emails. These are all examples of work that someone else will do for you, and they'll do it better than you. So let's imagine for a minute, what is the value of your time? When you're in front of a prospect or when you're creating the most value in your business, would it be fair to guess that you're worth about at least $250 an hour? Well, if that's true, then why are you doing work that someone will do better than you, and they'll do it for $20 an hour or less? Or let me put it a different way. Do you have a personal or a virtual assistant? And if the answer to that is no, well, then what I'd say to you is you do have a personal assistant. It's you, and you're shitty at it. Okay. And so there's an organized way that you can go from how you think about your time and where you create the most value in your business and what you should be doing more of, and as a consequence of that, what you need to be doing less of. And there's a systematic way to do that. So I get it. If you're in this room, you're probably working more hours than you care to. And so my goal here isn't to add to that. My goal here is to reduce the amount of hours, the amount of time you're working, and to stop doing work that needs to be done but shouldn't be done by you. I once helped a person in a business. This business did in-home food preparation and delivery. And so this person was a nutritionist, and she would get a customer, and then she'd go into that customer's home once a week and prepare food so that, this person could come home at the end of the day and there'd be some delicious, well, nutritious kind of food. And this person, that business grew from 100,000 annually to over 1.2 million in the course of a year. And every 3 months, we had to redefine her job. What is your job today? Because you can't be in kitchens anymore. You can't be grocery shopping anymore.
Right.
You got to have
Great
a team of nutritionists who they're the ones. And now you can't even lead the team. The team needs a leader dedicated to delivering the promise of the business. Because what should that owner be doing with their time? They should be acquiring new customers. That's the thing that owner could do that no one else in the business could do as well as that owner. And when that business gets enough leads, enough prospects, enough customers, then you can hire a salesperson, because then you can hire that salesperson on commission or performance pay. And when you get to that point, you're then focused on leadership. If I may, Lori, I use this bit of a metaphor. So let's pretend you're the captain of a boat in the Navy, and the boat is 50 feet and the crew is 10, and you're the most qualified engine room guy. How often is that captain in the engine room with tools? All the time. That captain is the most qualified guy. Now let's make you the captain of a 150-foot boat and the crew is 50. How often is that captain in the engine room with tools? Better be almost never, because now there's a guy who's the engine room guy. Yeah, of course there's a fire and catastrophe. Of course the captain's going to jump in. Now let's make you the captain. Again, a captain, same job, but this time of an aircraft carrier. And now there's 2,000 people on board. How often is that captain in the engine room at all? Well, maybe to give somebody a 20-year certificate, because that captain now has a guy who manages the guy who's the engine room guy. So a business owner, the title business owner, looks different when it's 3 people, 30 people, or 300 people. And your job is to figure out where, as you scale, as you allow that growth to happen, what you do, where you create the most value in the business needs to become the focus of what you do. And as a result, other things in the business need to be done, but can be better done by others. Now, lots of people say, well, gee, I can't delegate. How can I ask someone else to do the work at the quality I need? And that's where the role of SOPs, standard operating procedures, come in. So with my virtual assistant, whenever I ask her to do something, we get on a call, we record the call on Zoom or video recording, and the first thing she does, once I give her the instructions the first time, she sends me the SOP within 30 minutes, the standard operating procedure. And what this does is it proves to me that she knows exactly what I'm asking her to do, because she's documented it, she's written it. And it also proves that it kind of forms a contract, an agreement, because every time I ask her to onboard a new client, we agree completely, 100% what exactly that looks like. I don't have to tell her again. I don't have to explain it again. And we both know what it looks like to get the job done correctly. And the third part of that is the SOPs are so well done that I could give it to any capable person, and they'd be able to reproduce it without a lot of instruction from me. So what a lot of business owners think of delegation, what they actually do is abdication. Do the payroll. Do the accounts payable. Figure it out. Or they give them instruction one time and then wonder why the work's not done at the quality you need. And so learning to delegate is one of the key skills that's going to help you get to a place where the business has time and money, where you, the owner, have time and money freedom. Now, back to Eugene's point, some things don't lend themselves to being described by an SOP. Somebody's got to teach a surgeon how to do heart surgery. And so that takes a tremendous amount of skill and a tremendous amount of training. But the actual process of heart surgery is repeatable. Time and again, this is the process. Hopefully, Bob, that's a bit of a rant on my part. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm happy
Absolutely,
to
I
talk
really
about,
appreciate it.
I'm happy to talk about this and 100 other things, so feel free to ask me another question.
Where did you find your virtual assistant?
Well, here. I'll share my screen again. Let me just pick up. I think this is, oops, sorry. I'm so used to using Zoom that I'm not very good with. I did it again. Sorry, you guys. Share. Why don't I see this? Oh, I want to use this. Okay. So there's a site on the internet called Upwork. And this is where freelancers around the world make their services available. So let's have a look for a virtual assistant. And I'll even tease you a little bit. Let's go with engineer. I want a virtual assistant who's got engineering capabilities. So I'm going to pick on Franz here, and we're going to find out he's got a technical degree in Bachelor Information Science and Technology. Every one of the people on this list will have some kind of engineering degree. Here's one with a civil engineer. This guy will understand how to read blueprints. Construction project manager. I'm just teasing here. This is Leanza. She's a civil engineer. Now, and she works for 15 bucks an hour. There's some other things I could teach you about how to do this, but here's the thing. So you're wondering, how the hell do you hire someone at 15 bucks an hour? So when I hired Noemi in the Philippines, she was $10 an hour. When I hired her, I was kind of embarrassed. I had a little bit of crisis of conscience. Thought, geez, I'm paying like less than what someone would pay a babysitter. It's like child labor. But I did a little homework and I discovered the average income in the Philippines is $5,000 US a year. So if you're paying someone 10 bucks an hour, a standard work year is 50 weeks, 40 hours a week. That's 2,000 hours. If you're paying $10 an hour, that person's making $20,000. 4 times the national average. The average in North America is around 50 grand. So to hire that same person, I'd have to pay around $200,000. And Noemi, my virtual assistant, has a 4-year degree in information technology. So there's a bunch of things that you have to learn to do there, but lots of my clients have virtual assistants in the Philippines, and those virtual assistants work through their nighttime hours because that's how important this is how valuable the work is, so they can support North American hours. But if you wanted to and have someone that you could work with in real time, we could I only want to work with people in the Americas. And now what you're going to find is there's going to be lots of people in Mexico and Colombia and Bolivia and United States and Venezuela. My bookkeeper's in Venezuela. I'll just pick on Renata here. And she's a chemical engineer and she's got an MBA. She's pretty capable. She probably knows, she could probably teach us a thing or two about how to do things. So that's the magic of the internet and a site like Upwork, is that we now can get arbitrage in 2 ways. One, we get arbitrage in terms of pay. We're paying 10 bucks an hour, which is serious money for them. And the second way we get arbitrage is we get the top of the talent pool. We get chemical engineers for 10 bucks an hour. Why? Because it's 5 times as much as what they could earn doing their work of their degree in their own country. Crazy, but
I didn't know this existed.
So Bob, if you don't have a personal assistant, you're the virtual assistant and you're crappy at it.
I truly am. Thank you.
Well, for sure, everybody in the room ought to be able to relate to the oh shit list. And that list, as you move up that ladder, that list of things becomes different. But at every stage of the growth of your business, there's going to be things on your list that you think to yourself, crap, I have to do another proposal. I have to get another contract signed. Well, at the next level up, someone with these kinds of skills would be doing the proposals for you. You need to do, what the heck's it called now, a takeoff from blueprints. I can find you someone who can do that for you. Probably save you 2, 3, 4 hours. They'll do it as good as you, especially if you have an SOP and checklists, because that's how you're going to ensure. Well, here, let me show you something. I've got a few more minutes, Lori, I hope.
Yep, take your time.
I told you my VA is Noemi. And Noemi, I'll show you what an SOP is supposed to look like. Here we go. So let's say, for an example, this is a pretty simple versions of checklists that we agree that you're going to become a new client. So I send Noemi an email. Noemi, please onboard Bob. Bob's a new client. What does that mean to Noemi? Whenever John is a new client, you got to create a new folder. So you do that, and here's the description. Here's the screenshot to show you what it's looked like. And then you go to this folder and you recreate every one of these documents and put it in the new client's folder. So make a copy of it. And then we got to share that folder with the new person. So here's how you do that. And here's a script on what that email looks like. And then we want to change your status on my marketing platform. So we're not sending you marketing stuff anymore. That'd be rude. And so here's what that looks like. And then we want to send you a gift on Audible so that you get 3 credits to buy a book. And so here's how you do that. You go onto my Amazon account and you open and you get these and you gift that out. And here's a screenshot of what that looks like. And then we're going to set up 4 quarterly. So every 90 days we have a planning session. So let's get that all prepped up and ready to go. And there's a prescribed transcript for what that email looks like. So let's schedule all of that. And then we're going to send you a welcome email. And there's a template for what that email looks like. And here's how you find the template. And then here's the checklist. Here are the 7 things that's required every time I say I need to onboard somebody. Now, hopefully you'll agree that I could give that to just about any, that civil engineer. I could give them this list and they'd be able to recreate it without a ton of help from me, which is how they get those French fries to taste the same. Now, here's the important thing, Bob. I don't write the SOP. The incumbent writes the SOP, meaning the person who's going to do the work. Because they have to, first of all, when they write the SOP, it imprints, it forces them to learn the thing because they have to write it out. It forms the contract, forms the agreement, and it's reproducible. So they write the SOP. You have to give them instruction the first time. Probably took me 20 minutes to walk through this on my screen in a Zoom call that we recorded. But hopefully that gives you a sense of how you can work with a virtual assistant and train them to do your receivables or your payroll or your bookkeeping or answer your phones or, here's the thing. You want to stop letting the phones, the rings, pings, and dings interrupt everything you do. You want to stop letting the rings, pings, and dings dictate how you spend your time. If every time your phone rings, you pick it up, you're not in charge anymore. Your phone is. Your phone is dictating to you what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. And as a result, every time, Tony Robbins put it this way, every time you take a ring, every time you take a distraction, it takes 20 minutes to get back to the same level of focus as you had before. So here you are, you're doing a takeoff, or here you are, and you're writing a proposal, and you take a phone call, or you get distracted by the email ping, or someone walks into your office and says, got a minute. When you go back to looking at that proposal, you'll be in a state of fuzziness for 20 minutes before you're back on track.
Yeah, it's very true. That's been my experience.
And we do this because every ring, ping, and ding gives our brain a shot of dopamine. It's a hit of cocaine. It makes us feel good, but it perversely makes us less productive. It's a hard habit to break, you guys. We're hooked on rings, pings, and dings. So one of the things you will find you can have your VA do for you is help you manage your calendar. And the way you would do that is, this is a template. So every 30 minutes, you take, in this case, hypothetically, 8, 10, noon, 2, and 4, you get 30 minutes where your VA briefs you on all the rings, pings, and dings. Here's the 3 emails, here's the phone calls, and together you triage them because most of what's needed, your VA can actually do for you. But you need to be briefed, you need to be brought up to speed. And what does that give you? 90 minutes to do what? Anything you want, uninterrupted. Nobody can knock on your door. You don't answer your phone call. You turn off your email. And what does that mean? You get 5 of those a day, 5 days a week. You have 25 blocks of 90 minutes to do productive work. And every 90 minutes, you look up and you consult with your VA. And so for most of the people on this call, you should not be the first point of contact. If your customer or your prospect sends you an email and you're the first person to see it, the tail is wagging the dog. I say that kindly. If you don't have a personal assistant, you're the personal assistant and you're crappy at it. I'll leave you with this thought. One of the richest men in my part of the world is a guy named Jimmy Pattison. He is today, I think, about 11 billionaire. There's Jimmy, he's 94, 95, and he still works. So I point this out because he's worth 11 billion. So for 61 years, his personal assistant was a woman named Maureen Chant. There's Maureen. She's retired now. So my question for you, and to help you consider this, is what do you think she was paid? How much was Maureen paid? What's your wildest guess?
$5 an hour.
Someone's teasing me. She was paid $1 million a year.
Wow.
And in case you think that's preposterous, think about how much value a personal assistant can create for a billionaire. Jimmy understood that Maureen created hundreds of times of value relative to the amount she was paid. Now, we're probably not billionaires, but the value proposition is the same. And you can have it for about 10, 12 bucks an hour. US. So there's a bunch of other things we're focused on. Bob's original question was, how can I possibly think about working on my business when I'm working so much in the business that I don't have time? And so we went on a bit of a rant on that topic, but just to make the case that there's a way of rethinking how you spend your time, where you create the most value. And there's a great book on this called The Who, Not How. Who is going to do this? Because it's not going to be how can I get this done, or to change the sentence, it's not how can I get this done. The question you want to ask yourself is, how can this get done? And the only thing I changed is who's going to do it. Anyway, thanks, Lori, for the opportunity to have a rant here. I've got spittle on the mouth now, probably.
Thanks, John.
That was extremely informative, and I think we all have learned a few things today. Hopefully none of you feel that AWMAC needs to replace me with a virtual assistant. So
Well, Lori, that brings up an interesting point. And there's a lot of what you do and a lot of what I do that actually can be done by artificial intelligence better than I would do. But the thing artificial intelligence can't do today is bring judgment. It can regurgitate, but it cannot reproduce the years of experience that you have. And it can't reproduce the human experience.
Very true.
So I've said this before. One of my clients, I'll leave you with this thought again. So I said that before, Lori, but one of my clients, Brad was the guy's name, and I've been working with the guy for about 4 or 5 months. And in those days, I used to drive to my clients. I don't do that anymore. But one day I said to my client, Brad, hey, what do you like most about coaching? What's the biggest value for you? And he said to me, it's great to have a friend. And at the time, I was embarrassed by that answer. My God, this guy's paying me like to be his friend? Oh my God. But as I was driving home, I realized the wisdom of what he said. Being a business owner is lonely. Who can you talk to? Your banker? The accountant? The business lawyer? Heck, I try to explain something to my wife, and it takes me 30 minutes before she has enough context to give me, some reasonable advice on it, by which time she's bored to tears, or she starts giving me advice after 5 minutes, and the advice is not very good. So the thing that a virtual assistant or AI won't replace is the human experience, the connection. So Lori, you're probably safe.
Thank you. John, thank you so much. This has been absolutely a phenomenal session. I think everybody here will agree, very, very informative, and we greatly appreciate your time. I will have John's information if anybody didn't catch it. I think it was huddlewithjohn.com. So yeah, please feel free to reach out. John is, like I said, more than happy to delve into your business with you further if needed.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Lori, and Bill, for the opportunity. Been a pleasure to talk with you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.